All right, welcome back to SoFlo TV again, everybody. It is your host with the most. For those of us who have been around for quite some time, you can remember a young girl came on the Oprah Winfrey show back in the day, and she told Oprah Winfrey that she was born with HIV. Back then, when she came on Oprah Winfrey show and said she was born with HIV, AIDS or HIV was not as known about as it is today. People weren't educated about the facts. People were scared back then. Like if somebody said they had AIDS or you were suspected of having it, nobody wanted to eat from the same utensils that you would use. Hell, people didn't even want to be in the same room you were in. They didn't know if you sneezed, it might have been airborne and everybody else could catch it. So people who had it or were thought to have had it, they were treated very differently than they are today. Of course, as time went by, medication got developed, science got into developing medication that was better, that preserved people, and they were able to live longer and live a more fulfilling life. Back in the day, people were passing away really fast after they caught HIV and then AIDS. So with that said, a 39-year-old who suffered from AIDS since birth and once made the Oprah Winfrey show where she made Oprah Winfrey cry on air, she has succumbed and has passed away due to organ failure. She lived until she was 39 years old though. When she came on Oprah Winfrey's show, she was only 11 years old. And she shared her story back then that she was diagnosed with HIV. Since then, she had become a HIV/AIDS advocate, and she spent her entire life addressing the stigma surrounding the virus, especially during the AIDS crisis in the US in the 90s, when such diagnosis meant certain death. But on February 20th, her proper name is Lauren Broadbent. She announced Lauren Broadbent announced his daughter's death on Facebook. This is Lauren Broadbent announced his daughter's death on Facebook and said that she had remained determined to spread hope. Now, her proper name, rather, is Hydeia Broadbent. Right, and her father's name is Lauren Broadbent, and he was the one that made the announcement that she had passed away. According to Kimberly R. McCoy, a family member, Broadbent was on dialysis, and then she was on life support last year. And it is believed that all these complications actually happened because of the same disease, HIV. Now, here's the thing, which blew up and turned to AIDS. The thing about this is, from 11 to 39 is a number that many who caught AIDS and then eventually HIV or AIDS back in the day, you weren't expected to live that long. And really, people who caught it, they would be gone within a year or 2 years max. So for her to go from 11 to 39, almost 40 years old, that's a testament to the development of whatever drugs that were made that was able to help her to preserve herself for that long so she could live somewhat of a life, right? Now, with great sadness, her father said, "I must inform you that our beloved friend, mentor, daughter, Hydeia, passed away today after living with AIDS since birth." See, there's a difference between HIV and AIDS. She came on Oprah Winfrey at 11 and said she was HIV positive. But now her father says that she passed away today after living with AIDS since birth. Now, despite facing numerous challenges throughout her life, Hydeia remained determined to spread hope and positivity through education around HIV and AIDS. This is what her father was saying on his social media page. Now, shortly after being abandoned by her biological mother, who was addicted to drugs, in Nevada as an infant, this young lady was adopted by this father and Patricia Broadbent. So these are not her biological parents. She comes from a drug-addicted mother, and her drug-addicted mother abandoned her shortly after birth. And of course, they told her mom back then that you are HIV positive, you have AIDS, and now you have a baby, and we've tested the baby, and the baby is also HIV positive or has AIDS. And she panicked and got rid of the baby and went back to her drug life, her drug using, right? But by the age of 4, her parents discovered that she had been HIV positive since birth as well and had contracted AIDS by the time she was 4. Now, until the age of 6, the young child was tagging along with her mother, a social worker, and she raised HIV awareness, but soon after began to talk to people about the condition she herself carried. Some people are saying that they exploited her, but I don't think they exploited her. I think it was an outlet for her. In one sense, it was for her to educate herself about her condition that she had. And in another sense, it was also to give her a sense of purpose in life. Because like I said before, people didn't want to be anywhere near in the 90s, especially in the early to mid 90s. Nobody wanted to be around somebody who had HIV AIDS diagnosis and made it public. This is something people would literally hide and protect with their lives. You got to understand, the minute someone got a diagnosis that says you are AIDS or HIV positive, I would say in about a month or two, this person would have lost about 40 pounds. In another month or two, which would be 4 or 5 months down the road, they would have lost another 40 pounds. Imagine yourself losing 80 pounds in less than a year, right? And people would see it and they would move away from them. Even people who were like anorexic or people who had other illnesses that might have caused them to experience rapid weight loss, back then, people were so paranoid about AIDS and so protective of themselves through this paranoia that they would move away from people who were having weight loss issues without even knowing. And they would just say, they got the germ, they got the disease. They used to call it the germ. They got the disease, they got the germ. Get away from me. I don't want you in my circle. I don't want you around me. So this young lady having to grow up in that era, she definitely could have benefited from being able to speak and being able to own what is happening to her and how she is living. And I'm sure it helped her. During her appearance on Oprah Winfrey, she revealed that living with the disease was actually the hardest part of life for her. And she explained that the problems that came along with it. One time she said, I had fungus in my brain. I had blood infections and pneumonia. I went cold blue a couple of times. And that was when I was 5. A lot of my friends have died of AIDS, she said, because I don't have a choice. And I see so many people living recklessly, just putting their lives on the line. At what point do we get it? You're not just dealing with HIV, AIDS. We have to address a person's mental state, because if I don't feel good and I'm not happy and I don't want to get out of bed, I'm not going to take these pills to save my life. After hearing this, Oprah Winfrey began to cry in the interview. Now, years later, that same young lady revealed that she did not even realize that Oprah was crying. She was just trying to get her point across. And she says, I don't really remember her crying. I remember being on a stage and spending time with her after the show. She introduced me to her dog. She gave me all American Girl Addie doll. Last year, when I was featured in Oprah's Where Are They Now?, the response was overwhelming. I found out I was one of the most requested updates by viewers. So many people feel like they have watched me grow up and are just excited to know I'm doing well and I'm still speaking out, the activist had written on Instagram. And that was just not too long ago. She had also been featured as a guest on A Conversation with Magic Johnson on Nickelodeon in 1992 to raise awareness among children. A lot of people don't know it. The legendary basketball player Magic Johnson, He also was diagnosed with HIV/AIDS or HIV back in the day. And it was because of Magic Johnson, who today still looks healthy and strong, that a lot of people have been saying they have the cure. But I guess the cure is only for people who are super rich, super wealthy. Well, this young lady was not super rich and super wealthy, and apparently didn't have super rich or super wealthy friends. As you can see, she did live longer than expected, from 11 to 39. However, her journey is cut short, whereas if you look at Magic Johnson, his life continues, and he looks like the picture perfect picture of health. Now, on her 34th birthday, Broadbent wrote a blog post on her website celebrating a milestone as someone in the first generation of children that were born HIV positive. Can't believe she made it this far. These last few years have been extremely difficult, struggling with depression, which reached scary points. Meaning, at some point you're thinking, it's better off I just sleep away and not wake up, because why is my life like this? You must imagine growing up and you want to date and you like a boy as a girl, and you're getting older and you're not moving along as your peers are. Your peers are growing up. They're getting married. They're hooking up with people who they find attractive and people who find them attractive. And they have none of these worries. They're starting families. And you have to worry about being HIV positive or having AIDS and taking medications to stay alive. And what partner, young person, goes out here and say, I want an HIV positive person to start a family with? It's just not happening, right? So all that brings loneliness, and it could become pretty depressing. A depression so dark, I was not sure how I would see the beauty in life again. I was unsure of how I would pull myself back up. I now have a new outlook. I'm able to see now the blessings, the lessons from my valley. I am a warrior. I raise each day with purpose. I rise each day with purpose. But she says I raise each day with purpose while still being a work in progress, is what she wrote. And a GoFundMe for her had been launched by her father in order to lay her to rest. Hi, I am Lauren Broadbent, the father of Hydeia Broadbent. Yesterday afternoon, Hydeia unexpectedly passed away. Our hearts are broken. Hydeia spent her whole life since the age of 5 showing us all how to love, how to fight, and how to speak up for those affected with HIV and AIDS. As much as I wish she was still here fighting the great fight, God called her home, letting us all know, job well done. In honor of her memory, the family would like to lay her to rest. So at this time, we are asking for donations, along with well wishes and prayers. We would like to thank you in advance. The crowdfunding page had raised $3,438, and their goal was to raise $20,000. You can just go look up Hydeia Broadbent GoFundMe page if you feel like leaving a donation there so they can lay her to rest. I'm sure they'll be able to lay her to rest regardless, but they set up the GoFundMe for a reason, so I speak about it because they've set it up. Now, with that said, I won't add anything else to this. I won't take away anything else from it. I'll just give it to you raw as it is. The lesson of the day is be careful, be mindful of your choices, because your choices sometimes have consequences that not only you will have to suffer, but your children. Yes, she lived from birth until she was 39 years old, which is 39 years on earth. A lot of years, right? But imagine what quality of life would have been had she not born to a mother who was addicted to drugs and out in these streets being careless and contracted HIV and AIDS herself and passed it on to her child. I'll catch y'all on the next video. It's SoFlo TV. I'm out. Peace.